have been reviewing portable emulation machines for a very long time. In fact, I got some stuff here that I think you guys even forgot about completely, like this thing right here, the Funky S. Remember this tiny little thing, a matchbox-sized portable emulator that is effectively a GBA SP? Nigh unplayable, according to some.
See, I can play this just fine. Oh shit!
I actually am beating Mario World on this thing, and it's not that bad. Anyway, far from ideal, sure. I'll give you that. When people ask me, Izzy, what is the one... Let's try that again. When people ask me, Izzy, you've tried a bunch of these machines, what is the one you would recommend? And I admit that I'm kind of like out of the loop on this one a little bit because there have been so many amazing offerings, especially if you're looking into emulating things like PS2 or GameCube or Wii. So I kind of stay away from that stuff. It isn't really my focus when it comes to emulation. I think I've mentioned that here before. Because my tastes are more in line with the 16-bit generation, the Miu Mini Plus is, for my money, the definitive travel companion slash portable emulation machine. I do not go anywhere without this thing, and I really mean it. This is why most of the B-roll for this video is me in airports, because I travel a lot, and this thing never leaves my side. So, because I'm often exploring the Sega Genesis, SNES, NES library on this thing, I thought it would be a great idea to show you the weekly loadout, the games that I've been rocking on this thing, the games that I take with me on the Uber rides or when I'm waiting at the airport. So these are the 3 games I've been playing, and contrary to the usual tradition for videos like this, it's not all games that I loved. 2 of the games I'm going to show you are legitimate recommendations. One of them, you don't even need to tell you to play it because it's widely considered one of the best PS1 games ever. But the other one is a bit of a hidden gem, so I'm actually kind of excited to share it with you guys. And hell, might as well start with that one. I'm talking about Mr. Dough, the arcade game that came out in 1982, when it seems like everybody was trying their hand at the Dig Dug formula. Did I say Dig Duck? The G and the C are very close. The only difference really is that one vibrates the throat when the other does not. In phonetics, this is called voice. Did I say duck in that take? Maybe I did. Let's try that again. Back then, tunnel digging games were all the rage. Dig Dug was making bank at the arcade, so understandably, companies are rushing to put out their own spin on it. My favorite Dig Dug clone is actually a game called Digger. If I'm not mistaken, it was made by a Canadian dude, and this game harkens back to an era where one guy was responsible for making the entire game. I'm talking the logic, programming the thing, graphics, music, everything, distribution. Meanwhile, I can barely stick to an upload schedule. Embarrassing. Anyway, Mr. Dough is an arcade game that was ported for the NES, and it's kind of like a Dig Dug clone. I would argue it's far more elaborate. Like most arcade games back in the day, it's a little bit psychedelic. It's a little like a fever dream. You control this little clown who digs holes, and you have to run away from these little monsters while you collect cherries. Now, one interesting similarity between Mr. Dough and Digger is that in both games, when you're collecting the cherries, there's a progression of notes, like the pentatonic scale. It goes like do 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 as you collect them. Obviously, you play both games and you're like, yeah, one ripped off the other. I suspect Digger came out after, but don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it came out after. So you gotta dig the holes. The monsters are pretty crafty. You have to dodge them. You can throw a ball at them, just like the little thing that you shoot in Digger, except that in Digger, you shoot and then you have to wait a while for your shot to reload. And it gets longer and longer as you progress through the game. In Mr. Dough, on the other hand, the projectile is a ball and it bounces around in the holes you dig, which is interesting because one, you can kind of shoot it and forget it. It's bound to find an enemy, but also because you can grab it back. If it's not hitting anybody, you can kind of walk back in that direction. You also have this little like Kool-Aid man type of character that shows up from time to time, and it makes up the letters for the word extra. If you kill it 5 times, guess what happens? You get an extra life. Because of the variety of enemies, because of the fact that the shot behaves differently from a game that I was more used to, like Digger, and plus there's different ways to beat each level, just like with Digger. They're very similar. And it's funny because when I saw Mr. Doe at an arcade for the very first time, I assumed somebody had ripped off Digger. Obviously, that game actually came out before, and I suppose they were both ripping off Dig Dug. Ironically, a game I'm not a huge fan of. If you like weird-looking arcade games from the early 80s, you really should check this game out. Then, a game that really needs no introduction, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. When consoles made the jump to the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64, developers were understandably very excited to push these machines to their limits, and at the time, that meant polygonal graphics. Now, the jump from 2D to 3D was memorable, to say the least. There's a meme that goes around talking about how, like, for Gen Zers, they've had Fortnite forever, so it hasn't changed. But if you're my age, I'm 41, right? So I saw NES, then SNES, then PlayStation, Nintendo 64, PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5. So I've seen a bigger jump than some of these younger kids, right? That being said, my point is that in going in the opposite direction, by crafting a beautiful sprite-based game, Konami was able to achieve a look that is truly timeless. Symphony of the Night has aged far, far better than half of the games in the PS1 library. The animation is so smooth, so detailed. The backgrounds of the castle are so, like, it's a beautiful game. It's an absolutely beautiful game. Symphony of the Night is like half of the reason why we have such a thing as Metroidvania, the other game, of course, being Metroid. A game where exploring the map isn't a linear experience. You get to a point and then you cannot reach an area because there's a wall that you can't break, or there's an area that's too high for you to jump. But then later on, you beat some bosses, you find some secret areas, you end up gaining the ability that allows you to access that part, which means you're gonna backtrack a bunch to get back to that area. Which means I get lost a lot. I have real bad, like, spatial awareness in video games. Go figure, right? You'd think somebody who grew up playing these things would be a little bit better at navigating the environment of the game, but no, I get lost all the time. I have the memory of a goldfish, which means that Metroidvanias take me a lot longer to beat than most people, which isn't necessarily a problem, because if you take too long to beat Symphony of the Night, that just means you're playing more Symphony of the Night. And in fact, part of the reason this game is, this video is a little lopsided when it comes to B-roll, it's because when I got to the point that I needed to shoot B-roll for Symphony of the Night, I didn't want to stop playing it, so there's a whole bunch of B-roll for Symphony of the Night, not as much for the other games that I'm mentioning in this video. I beat it once on my GPDXD, remember that? Holy shit! I beat it once on that, and it was great, but I didn't do the whole upside down castle thing, which is like one of the things that the game is well known for, aside from the interesting blend between like gothic horror music, but like metal and guitar arrangements and solos and stuff like that. It's a great game all around. Combat is tight, the map is so memorable, there's such a wide variety of enemies, something that Symphony of the Night didn't come up with. That is something that has always been part of the Castlevania DNA, but it really shines here. Now, for my money, and this might be a little bit controversial, I don't know, but I think both Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow are better overall experiences. I think the whole, like, getting the souls from the enemies and being able to reproduce their attacks, this Kirby-like quality to the game makes it endlessly replayable. Because there's so many different, like, loadouts you can put together by taking the abilities from this guy and that other guy, right? So it's interesting. It's better than the sub-weapons. That's perhaps the weakest part of the Symphony of the Night experience, is that the sub-weapons are kind of lame. They're not really all that exciting. At least they're more useful than the sub-weapons in Super Castlevania 4, because the whip is so OP, you didn't really need to use the sub-weapons all that much, so the game ended up a little bit unbalanced. Symphony of the Night is a thoroughly incredible game, and it has earned its place in most lists of like best PS1 games ever, or hell, even best games ever. It's that good. Now, this is a great segue for a game that, like I mentioned in the beginning, doesn't seem to fit the usual layout of this kind of video, because usually this video is about, hey guys, look, this game is great, you should play it too, right? This is more of a cautionary tale. Don't replay this game. If you thought it was good when you were a kid, like I did, keep those memories. Don't revisit this game. Bart's Nightmare is yet another Simpsons game from that era that actually sucked miserably. Somebody pointed out that aside from the arcade beat 'em up, all of the Simpsons games are crap. Hit and Run, that little GTA experiment of theirs, I hear it's great. I have never actually played it. I cannot begin to tell you how many things are wrong with that stupid video game. First of all, the overworld is really confusing. It throws way too many enemies at you. The jump arc, Bart's jump arc, is really weird. Like, they didn't quite figure out the physics. And it is, for the most part, a platformer, so odd decision to say the least. It's just a very confusing game. The levels have no indication of what you're supposed to do, so most of the time you're playing that game, you're like, wait, I have to... First of all, when you're in the overworld, there's like every single Springfield citizen is trying to kill you. Okay, it's a video game, so that part I can't complain too much about that. But it would be very helpful if the hitbox was a little bit easier to predict. Sometimes enemies hit you, but they're in a position where you did not expect that to connect, and vice versa. Sometimes it's hard to aim your shots. The items are really confused. Everything is confusing. This is a game that could have used like a tutorial mode or something. It's a bunch of little mini games, basically, right? Like, the gist of the story is you fell asleep, you need to, all the pages of your homework were blown away, and then you collect them back in your dream. So every time you see a little page floating around in the overworld, you're supposed to jump on it. But again, good luck, because it's pixel hunting when it comes to that thing. I jumped on that little page several times and it didn't really trigger the level selection like thing. Anyway, you start with the level selection, and then you have literally like 3 seconds to decide one of 2 doors that are only identified by color, which is really dumb, because even if you've played the game a bunch, you will never really know which color is which. And then depending on which one you choose, you are taken to a little mini game. So in one of them, you're like Bartman and you're flying around and you're shooting down objects with a slingshot. Might be the easiest one, the most straightforward one. There's one where it's like an Indiana Jones style adventure where you're in some kind of like lost temple and you're jumping from platform to platform, and they're all colored, so some sink down, they're like hazards on the walls shooting at you. It all comes out of nowhere. It's impossible to figure out what you're actually supposed to do. That's the most annoying thing. There's one level where like a Godzilla type creature, Bartzilla I suppose, but all of the buttons for the actions, like punching and shooting like stuff, it's very random. So you're just mashing buttons, and it barely feels like a video game, is what I'm trying to say. Some of the levels, like the itchy and scratchy level, if you just stay at the very top spamming the, like, hitting the like a mallet button, you're able to like breeze through the level in a way that feels like it wasn't like properly tested. Like you're probably not supposed to be able to just stand in one spot and like hit the enemies like that. What a mess of a game, man. Like, truly it feels like it was unfinished. And not even like, because it's frustrating, but not in a Lion King way, right? Like, I'm not sure if you know about this, but the Virgin Interactive Lion King game, apparently they were told explicitly to make the game impossible to beat, because they were counting on people renting the game, and they don't want people to beat the game in one rental period. So they wanted people to keep going back to the store to rent it again, so they made the game frustrating on purpose. Bart's Nightmare is very frustrating, but it does not feel like this. It feels like it's an actual game design failure, rather than them trying to pad the game's longevity by making it pants-shittingly frustrating. I fucking hate that game, dude. Lion King, have you played that game recently? Don't. You should do better things with your time. Anyway, this video is longer than it probably needed to be. But I promised you guys a Miu Mini, like a weekly load up. By the way, this one is on you. If you guys like this video, this will be a, like, let's try that again. This will be a weekly thing if you guys hit that like button. Smash that like it owes you money. All right? Deal? Deal. All right, guys, it's a pleasure being back. I'll see you in the next one.